The Las Vegas Raiders have signed a new pass rusher, Andre Carter II. Today we'll talk about what he brings to the team. Personally, I think this is a great move, not because Carter is a star player yet, but because he's a low-risk, high-reward type of talent. Carter is in his second year in the NFL and has spent 2 seasons on the Vikings practice squad. For the Raiders, this means bringing in a player with some potential and room to grow. Carter comes from a strong football background. If you watch his game tape, you'll see he's smart, tall, and has the tools to become a solid football player. However, he's still developing and needs more experience and practice to improve. This situation reminds me of Clelin Ferrell. Ferrell started with the Jacksonville Jaguars, moved to the Carolina Panthers for a short time, but didn't make their final roster. The Raiders picked him up, trained him, and now he's been a productive player for them. Carter could follow a similar path. The Raiders' defensive line coach, Rob Leonard, is excellent at helping players reach their potential. Carter has upside, and some even thought he could have been a first-round pick before the 2023 NFL Draft. Unfortunately, an injury slowed him down, and his performance at the Senior Bowl wasn't great. Plus, coming from Army, the level of competition he faced wasn't as tough as in other college programs. Even with these challenges, Carter has stayed in the NFL for 2 years, which is a good sign. Many players don't make it past 1 or 2 seasons. This gives the Raiders a chance to work with him and see if he can grow into a reliable player. Andre Carter is getting a big opportunity with the Raiders. By signing him off the Vikings practice squad, the Raiders had to add him to their 53-man active roster. This means Carter not only gets a much better paycheck, but also the chance to prove himself on the field. The Raiders are dealing with some setbacks on their roster. Max Crosby recently had ankle surgery and even shared a picture from his hospital bed on social media. While his surgery was successful, he won't play this season. He'll start training in about 6 weeks to prepare for next season, which is good news for the team's long-term plans. On top of that, Just Robinson was suspended for 3 weeks due to a PED violation. With both Crosby and Robinson unavailable, the Raiders had to bring in someone like Carter. Again, this is why I really like this move. When you watch Carter's tape, you see his potential and upside. It's important to remember that the NFL isn't just made up of superstars like Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. The league is full of players who take time to develop. Many players aren't stars when they start, but grow into solid contributors by their 4th or 5th year. These role players are crucial for building winning teams. That's why scouts focus on traits when evaluating players. Things like arm length, wingspan, height, weight, and even technique. For example, traits were a big reason why the Raiders drafted Max Crosby, and that decision has clearly paid off. The same logic applies to Carter. While he's not a finished product, his physical tools and potential make him worth the investment. There are probably hundreds of players across the league who could play edge rusher at some level, but finding someone with the right traits and the potential to grow into a productive player is what makes moves like this exciting. The Raiders have picked Andre Carter, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He might even play this week against the Jaguars. With just 3 games left, every game matters. Winning even 1 game could change the team's draft position significantly, from picking 7th to 12th, for example. Switching gears, a report from Josina Anderson caught my attention. She wrote an article about the Raiders and why she believes they may not keep Antonio Pierce as their head coach. The headline mentioned that general manager Tom Telesco is separating himself behind the scenes, which sounded dramatic and misleading. Let's be honest, Tom isn't really doing that. That said, there's a real chance the Raiders are considering other head coaching options. I recently made a video where I said the team should move on from Antonio Pierce because he lacks experience in many key areas. Some fans disagreed, asking why the Raiders keep firing coaches instead of sticking with one. I understand that frustration. At some point, the team does need stability. However, opportunities to hire great coaches like Ben Johnson don't come around often. Johnson has the potential to be one of those long-term, game-changing head coaches, like Andy Reid or Bill Belichick, who stayed with their teams for decades. Coaches of that caliber rarely become available more than once in their careers. If the Raiders stick with Pierce, he could still succeed. He might hire a strong offensive coordinator like Clint or Clay Kubiak, who could help build a great offense. While this could work out in the short term, It's worth considering whether the team should seize the chance to bring in a proven coaching talent like Johnson for long-term success. It could work with Antonio Pierce, but for that to happen, the team would need to hire a great offensive coordinator. If the head coach doesn't call plays, the success of the offense depends on having someone highly skilled in that role. Now, if Ben Johnson is available, the Raiders should think seriously about hiring him, especially if they get the first overall draft pick. Johnson could have the chance to choose his quarterback, whether it's Caleb Williams, Cam Ward, or Sheeter Sanders. He might not be sold on Caleb Williams, as some people aren't, but having the freedom to pick his own QB could be a big draw. The Raiders also have a solid defense, which makes the team an appealing option for a coach like Johnson. If the Raiders believe they can secure him, they might decide to let go of Antonio Pierce. It's worth noting that Ben Johnson will likely have his pick of teams if multiple coaching jobs open up. For example, he might prefer a team like the Jaguars if that position becomes available, given they have a talented quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. Reports from insiders like Josina Anderson and Albert Breer suggest the Raiders are considering their options. Anderson mentioned that Tom Telesco is separating himself behind the scenes, and Mark Davis recently expressed disappointment in Antonio Pierce's performance. These comments hint that Pierce's position might not be secure, though it doesn't necessarily mean Telesco's job is at risk, too. It's clear that the Raiders need to commit to a coach for the long term, but they must make sure it's the right coach. Proven play callers have shown they can win in the NFL, and the league is dominated by those with the vision and skill to lead teams successfully. For now, the Raiders have brought in Andre Carter and are navigating these coaching rumors. Only time will tell what happens next. What do you think? Share your thoughts, give this a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.